We still don't know for sure whether Donald Trump was hit by a bullet, whether he was hit by glass fragments, whether he was hit by shrapnel. We don't have those details. We actually have no details from his physician. We don't know why, for 9 full seconds, Donald Trump was allowed to stand back up and pose for a photo. What is the actual injury to Donald Trump's ear that's under that bandage? Shouldn't we know that by now? It's weird. And there doesn't seem to be a whole lot of curiosity about it. Why isn't the New York Times aggressively pursuing his medical records?
Things are going to start happening to me now.
You've done all the reading. You're a scholar. You're a professor. You've done all the reading. You've done the intellectual heavy lifting.
More or less, eat shit and die.
You wouldn't know a fact if it begged you all night long.
Want to give the wrong impression, because I am very high.
Ran up behind him with a hatchet. Smash, smash, smash.
Yeah. Care. I'm a libertarian. What I'm getting is,
did you vote for Joe Jorgensen or Trump?
Who?
Joe Jorgensen. That was the perfect answer. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. This is Tyler Yonke, Libertarian. No, we're just going by LPR. We're kind of dropping the Libertarian podcast review. This is episode, I think it's 174. I'm pretty excited about this one. This was actually one that I told my wife about, and she said, hey, maybe I will listen. Probably not, but in hindsight, maybe she will at one point. So Andy was in the background. He may come in. Who knows? However, we have got a great episode tonight. We've got an expert. Trump was shot at and somewhat shot. There's a question about that. Joy Reid does not believe him, but we are going to break through all of this. Welcome, everybody, to the show. I think it's maybe the first time he's ever been on the show. Lee, unmute yourself. Welcome to the show. How you doing?
Hey, what's up, Tyler? How are you?
Good. Let me just pose this out right out there. First of all, Lee was on Not a Podcast, a famous show with Bert, El Popo, Steppy. I loved it. I got blocked because I did a review of it. I was listening to an episode where I had followed you, Lee, because you had got yourself banned on Twitter. You came back. I followed you on your new account, and you said on the show, "This guy just followed me. Should I allow it?" And they said yes. So welcome, mea culpa for anything I had done to get me banned in the first place. But how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing good, man. Yeah, Nap was a good show. That's good radio for a bit there.
It was. What is up with all those guys? I mean, you're kind of the last bastion. Well, I know El Popo is still on Twitter, but what is up with Bert, Steppy? What has happened to these gentlemen? They've been they're folklore in Twitter life.
Yeah. I still talk to those guys. They're doing well. I will respect their wishes to be kind of offline, and so I won't comment much. But they're doing well, and I'm still in communication with those guys routinely.
Good. Well, give them our best. Big fans of all of them. So, although we still see El Popo trolling himself online. So, okay, Lee, you're anonymous-ish, so which is good. Give us some background of what you do, what you're currently doing, but why specifically do you think that Tyler would even reach out to have you on this show specifically about this thing? Give us your palmares, as they say in France, or your CV.
Yeah, so I write a newsletter primarily focusing on guns, politics, some stuff, 3D printing, things like that. And so a lot of my individual background is in shooting and military, things like that. So I suspect you reached out or something in that vein. I don't have any experience with the Secret Service or anything like that, but nonetheless, it's a topic that shooting generically and things of this nature is a topic I like to discuss. So I'm glad to be here.
Good. Yeah. So you do have a military background, because I've heard you on multiple shows talking about that. So and you commented on Twitter about the Secret Service, the sniper stuff specifically. So I thought, I don't know shit. Let's get someone who knows it. So military background, is that correct?
Yeah, right.
Okay. All right. Well, let's kind of get into. So, first of all, how did you hear about the event with Trump, and what was your initial reactions immediately following it?
Yeah, it was crazy. My brother had texted me and was like, they just fucking shot Trump, and I was like, oh shit. So I saw it, I guess, a few minutes after it happened, like most people, and my initial thinking on it was, that pretty far from, what it looks like it's shaped out to be. Like, this was a few days ago now, and we're getting all kinds of really insane details and reports, some verified, some unverified, of what it looks like actually happened. And I figured, at first it was just like, okay, like this is gonna be a big deal, and he was alive, he was okay, so I was happy to see that. And now it looks, I mean, this is to me, like, from the way I see it, with what we seem to know now, like the things that are reasonably presented at this point, it seems like this was, maybe something more nefarious than just some random kid who was, in over his head on making a 120-yard rifle shot. But this is, at a best case scenario, it was like a complete categorical failure, and a worst case scenario is an attempt to let the president in exile be fucking shot in the head on in high definition on live TV.
Right. And I do want to get into some of the conspiracy theories and break some of those down, or just at least see kind of where you're at. But maybe let's talk first about the shot itself, right? The premise is this Crooks guy, great name, by the way, for what he was doing, is doing a shot about 120, 150 yards, right? I mean, it's an easy 8-iron for me if you're out there golfing, so it's not a long distance. What about that shot? Is there any difficulty in it, especially being prone position on a roof? Is there any difficulty for what he was doing that day?
No, not from a practical standpoint. I mean, I'm sure nerves were a factor, but outside of that, this shot, it seems to be about the 125, 150 yard ballpark. That is not anything substantial with an AR pattern rifle. That's well within the capabilities of 5.56. That's something that you could train somebody day one to make a 125, 150 yard shot after maybe 10 or 20 minutes on the range if you had a good student. This is basically, especially considering that he was able to fire 5-8 times, it's unlikely that you would miss 5-8 times, honestly, against a man-sized target from 125 yards. This is in terms of just the shooting alone, entirely unchallenging. Like, this is like a layup. So Trump is very, very lucky, and as he said at the RNC, perhaps there was some he was shielded by God or that type of thing, but he caught a lucky break not getting hit from 125 yards, because that's a very easy shot to make. Anybody can make it. You do not need to have any type of real expertise. I mean, if you've gone to the range and attempted this, once or twice, you would probably be able to do that without much difficulty.
Okay, so what was the weapon report? And by the way, I would just say, I did an episode. I'm going to just actually throw this up here. I think it was episode 90, where I broke down. Did a thing with the Warren Commission. They did a report on the JFK shooting, and CBS, obviously everybody knows that, but CBS did a 4-part series a few years after the commission, or when the report was given. And I felt like they were gaslighting people. And what I mean by that is there were obvious, they broke down all these aspects, and there were so many things, you know, they would show people, as an example, did Lee Harvey Oswald get the rifle up into the fourth floor of the book repository? And they talked to some people, and these people basically gave counter evidence to the fact that he would have been able to take it up there. And then they said, so we conclude he did. So it was like, okay, maybe there's no conspiracy there, but you're gaslighting us with that. My problem with the media, and we'll see how this all plays out, is if they are if they're holding back or they're not giving us the good information, and then it's easy to find, especially with phones and everything, recording everything nowadays, you're going to have a bunch of conspiracy theories just out there in general. Okay, so that's one aspect, and we can talk about that at the point. But what kind of gun was he using? It's been reported that it was, I think, it was. I'm sorry.
It is reported
an
as
AR-15 style, but
yeah. What I've seen is that it's reported as a DPMS AR-15, which DPMS, it has a pretty long history with making things for the military, but their commercial line is like entry level. It's not. This is not like a particularly nice firearm or anything like that. So DPMS is like a DPMS AR-15 is like an entry level. It's a relatively low price point. You can pick these up for a few $100s, and it's definitely not like high end gear. But with that said, I mean, even using a mediocre gun like this, it's still able to reliably hit a man-sized target at 125 yards. Like it's not a precision rifle, but it's definitely well built enough to do that. So this is a young guy. My assumption would be that he just didn't have a whole bunch of money to throw at an AR build, and wanted to have something, and DPMS fits the bill for that. And so that's what this is.
And what kind of ammo is he shooting with that?
Most of the standard DPMSs are just 5.56, 223. So I haven't seen anything to the contrary of that. Like the default assumption of like a DPMS sporter is that it's going to be a 5.56. So he would be shooting some type of 5.56 millimeter or 223 Remington ammo out of this.
And how much damage is a round like that doing? I mean, it's obviously going to kill a Trump out there if you hit him in the head.
Yeah, it's let me put it this way: there's a lot of skeletons buried in the desert because of 5.56 ammo. So it's a capable cartridge. Like 5.56 is not. It's not known for just like tremendous knockdown power, like the boomer concept of knockdown power, but it's very fast and it's very easy to shoot. It's very, very low recoil. It's very controllable. Like a competent shooter, this isn't like if you're shooting a man-sized target from 125 yards, a competent shooter is going to be able to score multiple hits in a short amount of time on that. Like this isn't like a trick shot. And 5.56, it's easy to shoot. It's especially from a prone supported position. The recoil from an AR-15 is negligible, and so it's the 5.56 is more than adequate for shooting a man-sized target. If it had actually hit Trump's head, it almost certainly would have been fatal. So it's capable. Like the round is capable, and not only is it capable, but it's very easy to control. So that's another factor as to why it's a very lucky break that Trump didn't take any of these other than what skimmed his ear. So, and I'm sure you've seen everyone saying that there's no way this was a bullet, because if a 5.56 bullet had even nicked his ear, it would have like ripped half his head off. And there's a lot of lib cope going on right now. The thing about 5.56 is that it's not exceedingly powerful. Like if it nicks your ear, it would do exactly what it did, which is localized bleeding, and you would be fine. Like there's everything that happened here is consistent with what I've seen 5.56 do in the past. So none of this like sticks out as being questionable in that regard.
Okay, and that I was listening to over the last several days, multiple experts, and one of them was Tim Kennedy. I don't know if you know who he is, a fighter.
Yeah.
Supposedly has done Secret Service stuff. He said the exact same thing with you about a round going by you. Would that actually do much damage? He's basically saying, a 308 may be doing more damage if it just passes you with the concussion burst that's coming by. And that's probably what you're intimating at as far as people saying, blow your head off if just going by you. Is that what you're indicating?
Yeah. I've seen a lot of people who for whatever reason are very invested in saying that there's no way this was actually a legitimate assassination attempt and things like that, and that this is staged. There's no evidence that I've seen to suggest anything like that, and a 5.56 bullet simply passing near you would not really do anything to you.
Right.
That's there's like a lot of FUD lore about. People say that about like a 50 cal. Oh man, if that thing even passes next to you, you're gonna die. It's like that's not really how this stuff works. It's entirely possible that a 5.56 can nick your ear, and it will bleed for a bit, and you should probably have a doctor check it out, and then you're gonna be perfectly fine in an hour or so. That seems to be what happened.
Gotcha. Okay. Why don't you tell us what your understanding is now? Maybe even the differences from the first few days, the timeline, to now. And how much have you, because I've been somewhat enthralled by this, honestly, but there's so much out there, and day by day, there seems to be things that are, two examples, a Big Short, they said about, financially, some investment group that was shorting the stock while actually was buying puts. And that, I think I could even debunk that, which is actual shares out, or it's actually volume options traded, not just what they reported. Anyway, so there's some of that. And then there's this person that's behind that was supposedly an FBI director. That's been debunked as well. But why don't you take us through what you think the timeline is, and you can mix in between, what you thought at the time to things that you found out before, and maybe let's walk through that, and then we can go through some other aspects as well.
Yeah. So initially, what this looked like was some type of blind spot in the security for this event, right? Like initially, because you have to remember that if a shooter opens fire, if the president gets hit with anything, I mean, you had a situation where the protectee was injured, you had civilian deaths. It's a fail state because of that. Regardless, like there's no way to spin it as successful. So know right away from that there is a problem. Something went wrong, and presumably some type of protocol or procedure, something of this nature was not followed. So it looked initially like, maybe there was, the shooter was, from like an unknown position, and the Secret Service sniper team returned fire, killed the guy, and then it was just kind of like a freak occurrence. But it's kind of become obvious now that it's much, much worse in terms of bare minimum negligence. Like it's very clear, like because the thing that followed after was the idea that this guy had actually already had an encounter with law enforcement, and that a bunch of people who were at this event had been saying, "Hey, look, there's a guy with a rifle on the roof," and so that's insane. And then it came out that the building that he was on was actually like a police staging area for something, and that law enforcement was actually inside the building when this kid was on the roof when he opened fire. And so I kind of figured, I can see how, like, if you're the Secret Service and some, guy says, hey, there's a guy with a rifle over by that building, and that that's the building that the police are in, you may not actually be alarmed by that, right? Like if that there are police there in what is reported as some type of counter sniper position. I've seen that reported. I don't know if that's true. So if where friendlies are, and someone says, oh, hey, I saw a guy with a rifle over there, you might say, oh, okay, thanks. We're good. If you're assuming that that's some type of law enforcement presence that person is referring to. But so at first I was like, okay, well, I can see this is like a nightmare situation, but I could see how that would occur. But now it's shaped up to look more like that's not what happened, and that this guy, they were apparently aware this guy was there, that he was at least bare minimum acting in a suspicious manner, that he was on law enforcement's radar, had some type of interaction with law enforcement before, shortly before opening fire. And so it paints a much different picture now, because if you explain this to someone who doesn't have any emotion about it, like if you explain this to someone in another country who doesn't follow politics, and you just said, there's a controversial public figure. He is despised by the bureaucracy and the state apparatus. It looks like he's gaining momentum and he may win office. A lot of people risk being fired or things like that if he becomes a commander. And there happened to be a very glaring security issue that was left open that presented an opportunity for an assassination attempt. You would obviously think there was some type of foul play associated with this, right? I saw someone, I forget the ad, but someone on Twitter had said, well, if you had heard this story and it was about an opponent of Vladimir Putin, you would think, oh, well, obviously, this is just, a state-sanctioned hit. So to me, it appears at a bare minimum, this is some type of negligence that, maybe they were willing to let something happen that shouldn't have happened.
Well, look, you just mentioned the Russia-Putin thing. Wasn't it Navalny? I think that's the guy that recently died. And immediately it's like, well, he's been assassinated or killed. And, I think the family or the report is that he was sick, that it wasn't really that. It's hard to tell, right, when there's so much propaganda there. But our initial reaction is not anything other than the worst. So you're exactly right with this. Okay, so we've got this gentleman, Crooks, that is walking around. There's range. He's out there with the rangefinder. People are pointing him out. Let's talk about some of the failures. First of all, there's a lot of video of just him and people pointing him out. How come no one, and I know you don't know, but if you're in this situation, now you can't have your gun there, but you're in this situation, you see a guy that's obviously he's not a security guy. You don't think, maybe you think he's a counter sniper, but I doubt it. Because people were warning everyone about him, and no one does anything. Not even just the civil. You see a movie where some Rambo guy just takes it upon himself to save the president or do whatever. You didn't have that. Other than warning. You didn't have the police doing anything other than the guy. Now the policeman, there was supposed to be one that crawled up there and looked, and that may have forced Crooks to, if he's the shooter, to shoot quicker. But anyway. Police, Secret Service, any of these others, no one took action. What do you think you would do in that? And this maybe not a good thing to say, but you could kind of go off of this. But no one took any action towards him, throwing rocks at him. I don't know if that's a defensive move, but no one did anything. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think the social dynamic can be pretty reasonably explained by the fact that the Secret Service has, culturally, they're viewed as kind of like an all-seeing eye when it comes to presidential security, right? Like the American culture views it as maybe you don't see it, but there's 500 guys ready to just kill you in 1 second. So there's got to be some level of disbelief. Like if you're a civilian and you notice this guy on the roof and you're like filming it, you're telling the police about it, and no one's doing anything. It's almost like you would believe that someone's got an eye on this, right? Like they have to know that this is going on. There must be something here that I'm not seeing, something I don't understand. So it builds in that reasonable doubt in a situation. It's not clear that you have to take action, right? Like if you think about how people take action, right? Usually people might think, does action need to be taken? Does action need to be taken by me? And does action need to be taken right now? If you've reported something to law enforcement, you may not think that it's on you. And as far as I'm concerned, you would be correct in that. I think it's unreasonable to think that, like a MAGA chud is going to go, running up an extension ladder to confront a guy with an AR-15, especially if police security and a Secret Service sniper team is not doing that.
So what is your take on the counter snipers? Maybe I should pull up some of these.
Reorient ourselves.
Whoops, that's not the one I wanted to do here. I took some slides off of one of these guys, kind of showing the different aspects. Now, this one guy went and did some calculations, and I don't know what to really make of it other than, let's see if I could get here. So there's Crook's body, where they eventually found him. You've been able to see this stuff. But there's been a lot of speculation that it is actually, like ABC and some of these other ones have reported that it was over on this far left side. So there's all these, conspiracies about whether what took place here. What I really wanted to get at was where Crook's body is supposedly to be, and then the angle from the counter snipers. Let's see if I can actually get it. I think this guy was basically saying, I'll just tell you right out here. He says there's this open window. His calculations are that there was maybe a possible additional sniper in that window, where Crook's body is over here. And that could be some of those issues. But this is, let me see. I thought I had one of these. Nope, that's not it. Okay. The point is that you see the two snipers on the top, and I do have video of those. Those two guys that everyone's seen. He looks through the glass. He pulls his face away from it. That they were actually... people first thought that they had the eyes on the target, but there's a tree in the way. So what about those guys' reaction? Because that's kind of what first caught my attention as far as what you were tweeting out about those. And what do you think they were doing if they were doing anything right, or what? Give me your breakdown of the counter snipers themselves.
Sure. So at a bare minimum, what we know is that they effectively engaged the shooter with what seems to be one shot. Right. So, okay, they're effective there. They did eliminate the threat, so that's fine. At first, like when this was like developing early on and that video surfaced, I had a pretty charitable interpretation of it, because 125 yards is well within like that's basically like probably outside of what those guys are scanning for, because those guys are not there to engage a target that's 125 yards away. Like those guys are, and I've seen this confirmed with two other people. I saw one Twitter thread from someone who's worked Secret Service detail, and I listened to a space from someone who has been on security detail in the Secret Service, and they kind of confirmed my suspicion on that if you're a counter sniper team, you're not really in that like 120 yard like bubble there. Like you're going to be, if you're just scanning and assessing, you're going to be further out than that. So if like you're under magnification, right? Like if you're on your glass and you're scanning 500 yards out along a tree line or something like that, and all of a sudden shooting starts from somewhere else, and you have to find the target, and engage it, then yeah, doing that in a couple of seconds is very, very skilled. Like that's a good outcome. Like if you go from basically 0 to, okay, the president's taking fire. We've located the target. We've engaged the target. He's down, 1 hit. That's pretty good. And everyone, kind of criticized the guy on the roof, the one sniper, where you can see him. He comes off his glass and looks over it. And I'd seen people saying, like, oh, this guy sucks. He's like flinching and stuff like that. Maybe he flinched, but that's pretty normal, especially, when something starts, just to be honest. But B, if you're, if you're at, 15, 20x magnification, you don't have a wide field of view at all. Like you're not able to actually scan a broad sector very quickly. And so it's not uncommon to come off your glass if you're assessing that there's a threat much closer to you. Like that's a totally normal thing to do, because you have to figure out where that is with like your naked eyeball first. Like you got to revert back to, the old Mark I eyeball before you can get back under glass and adjust your magnification and, get your shot off. So at first I didn't think that was the issue. Like I don't think that the sniper team on the roof was like where this fell apart. Like I think that's not like the simplest job to get, and there's a lot of proficiency that you have to routinely display. And so I think the failure is probably more at like the strategic and operational level rather than the tactical level here. And I think that, at least when this was first developing, I was like, okay, I mean, someone dropped the ball, but it was not this team of snipers that's on the roof, because ultimately they did their job. Like they were able to effectively engage this guy reasonably quickly. They took him down, 1 shot, no other casualties. So that's kind of what they're supposed to do. But since then, it has become apparent that at some level, this kid had been picked up much earlier. Like they had already viewed this as a person of suspicion. They had already observed him with a rangefinder. And so my opinion on that has kind of evolved under that, where it's like, well, if you know that this guy's an issue, and it's, I don't have a good excuse for like why it would have gotten this far, basically shy of just saying that, someone must have said, hey, look, let it slide, or, something, like there's no reason to have a laser rangefinder and be seen with a laser rangefinder, like lasing a target and not being at least talked to, engaged by law enforcement in some manner, like preemptively, right? Like if you, like if this is kind of, this is apples and oranges, but like in the military, like in my time in Iraq, like if you're in a hide site, right, and you noticed that like a local national was like lasing your hide site with a rangefinder, you would have engaged that. Like you would not have.
And what do you mean by engaged?
I mean, you would have shot him. Like you would not. There's no. And again, it's apples and oranges, because this is outside of the U.S. and it's a wartime thing. It's not. I understand this is law enforcement and it's American civilians.
And you can imagine. Let's just say there's a Hispanic dude just trying to get a better view, dipping his head above the pitch there, and you take him out. That's going to be a problem, right? So these guys are at some point, up against that issue as well.
Yeah, and there's right. I mean, that's a factor. What if you're wrong? Is a point of friction in your decision making, and it's a worthy thing to stop and consider. I mean, I don't think that the Secret Service should be trigger happy, but I don't think in this case that's what they demonstrated. No. And so like there's not a real reason to have a laser rangefinder at a presidential speech, You know, it doesn't have another purpose that I'm aware of other than
Right.
you
He's
know,
not out there
ranging a
golfing.
target.
Yeah.
Right. I don't think it's like, you know, there's not like a secondary use that I'm aware of on that. And so he's been reported as being known for quite some time to these guys. Like I saw, you know, one timeline that said that about almost exactly an hour before he opened fire, he had been identified as someone that they thought was suspicious. And about a half hour before he'd opened fire, they had seen him with a rangefinder, and that the Secret Service team had spotted him on the roof. And so, you know, from what I've seen on this, there was about a 20-minute window between the time that he was spotted on the roof to the time that he opened fire, you know, which is insane. And you can make a very reasonable argument that, you know, everyone who works in law enforcement, Secret Service, I mean, these guys aren't superhuman. And so if there's a 3-4 minute lag between the time that like someone is spotted and someone can get eyes on or be like co-located with that person, sure. But like 20 minutes is entirely unreasonable. Like there's, you know, it's 100 yards away. It's not like, you know, you need to walk somebody, you know, a mile through a swamp or something. It's 120 yards away, and it's a known building. Like the law enforcement has engaged with this building in some capacity, either using it as staging area or like a counter sniper team in the floor below. I've seen conflicting reports about this, but all indications are that law enforcement was familiar with this building. They knew that it was there. They had considered it in some capacity, and now there's a guy on the roof with a laser rangefinder, obviously a rifle. You know, to be fair about it, you know, you have to assume that Crooks is partially concealed by the apex of the roof, right? Like he's going to be on the far side as it relates to the Secret Service. So assuming that they don't have full visibility, you would still be able to see him using a laser rangefinder. You would still be able to see him with a rifle. So even if you couldn't see his full body, you would still be able to see what's relevant. And the rifles that the Secret Service is using is more than capable of discerning that from 125 yards. I mean, the optics that are on these Secret Service rifles, you know, it looks like this is a Night Force, what's called an attacker, an ATACR, and most models of attacker, you know, gets up to, you know, at least 25x magnification. And so 120 yards, 150 yards, if you're at even 20x, 18x, 15x, I mean, this is more than sufficient to make out clearly what's going on with this kid.
So with that in mind, it's my belief that the short-term perimeter that, you know, that this guy is in 150 yards is kind of, as you're indicating, especially if they're having scoping, they're thinking something much further out. They're thinking, you know, some sort of sniper that doesn't think he can get in this close, because this would normally be too much of a tight perimeter security for this kid, for anybody to just be in there, right? I mean, and that seems like to me to be the case. Then you have all this chatter about people seeing him, but that's not necessarily perhaps the channel frequency, you know, communication up to the snipers, counter snipers themselves. So I don't know if those guys actually see, and then maybe being blocked in all this, and let me ask you this. What do you think of the aspect that there's so much admission and pushback from different sides about complete failures? I mean, you just mentioned a bunch, you know, spotted him, you know, 30 to 40 minutes, hour before. Someone took a photo of him. He's out there on video. He's being told about this and this and this. A cop gets up and sees him. All these little aspects of failures that are being admitted. What do you think that is about?
I think it's probably symptomatic of, I mean, this is a natural outcome of bureaucracy, right? Like bureaucracies are ways of diffusing responsibility. Like that's one of the social effects of operating a bureaucracy. It's a social technology that makes it so that an organization, a political party, a business, anything like that can fail, and there's no one at fault, right?
Let me ask you, step in here. So you were in the military. Did you find that the bureaucracy because you expect institutions like Secret Service, the protection, military I know there's still bureaucracy in there, but on the ground, the forward unit, have they always been inundated by this bureaucracy problem?
It can creep up on you. Like so I'll give you like a practical example. And again, this is apples and oranges. I'm talking about regular like line infantry units versus Secret Service. It's a different job. It's a different mission. So I don't want to misrepresent myself, but I do think some of this is a universal issue. And one of the things that can happen is this situation where like if something is everyone's responsibility, then it's no one's responsibility.
Yeah.
And what can happen, especially when you have layers to like a type of like defense, right? So like in the military, like if you're setting up like a patrol base or something of that nature, you part of your obligation is what's called force protection, where you have to have someone on guard detail so that you have 360-degree security, and that usually involves setting up what's called interlocking fields of fire, right? Where you might have a couple different fighting positions or battle positions that says, okay, you're covering from whatever 11 o'clock to 3 o'clock. Next position over is covering from whatever 2 o'clock to 5 o'clock, so something of this nature, so that your fields of fire interlocking. Everyone has their job, right? And what happens in a unit that is not disciplined or does not have much experience is that when something happens somewhere, everyone will break sector and they'll stop doing their own job, right? And focus on like, hey, what's going on over here? And now for 30 seconds, like your north side is exposed because the guy on the north side's like, oh shit, what's going on 100 yards to the south? I better go look at what's up here. And so if you have a situation where maybe everyone can hear, I don't know how the Secret Service, I don't know how their communications are set up, right? So normally for like a line military unit, again, different thing, I get it, but normally you will have like an internal push and then like a company channel where the internal push can be for more routine chatter. Company channel is just for more formal communications. So assuming that everyone can hear some type of hey, there's a suspicious person here or something like that. Well, if you have 35 people on a detail and each person has their own sector to worry about, they're not supposed to all go investigate this, right? So you create this dynamic potentially, and I'm not sure this is what happened, but this is a problem that can occur in these situations, is where nobody actually follows up on it because they all assume that someone else is covering this, right?
Yeah.
And if you're a sniper or like a counter sniper with the Secret Service and your sector is, okay, you're covering from whatever 300 yards to 800 yards or something like that, whatever it is, and you hear on the radio like, hey, there's a suspicious individual over by the local law enforcement guys about 125 yards in. Well, you're not really supposed to break sector and start focusing on the local guys' jobs, because that's what they're there for, right? Like if you go to do their job for them, then now that further distance is not covered. And again, I'm not saying that's what happened. I don't have any idea, and no one really seems to. But I can think of several reasons why, like the counter sniper team would not necessarily have been ready to engage this guy, even if they knew that he was there. Is the point that I'm trying to make there. And so if that's what happened, having to break sector and then engage a target that has already opened fire, while deconflicting the fact that he's on a rooftop that is ostensibly under control by local law enforcement, if that's what happened, then however long it took them to take this shot, I think it was about 16 seconds. That's a fair time. Like that's not, it's not great, but under the circumstances, that's a reasonable amount of time. I mean, this stuff takes time. Like I said earlier, these guys aren't like superhumans. And so if you go from 0 to, oh shit, Trump just got shot, and a bunch of chaos, and it looks like it's coming from where your own guys are, then yeah, it's going to take you a minute to sort that out before you pull the trigger. And in this case, it appears like they developed a good, a good solution for this, and they were able to engage the target effectively.
Yeah, let me play this, and this is a little rough, but I think it's fine. It's the live footage from Fox here of the event actually happening, and I think the point I wanted to play with this for was the actual shots, and then we can talk about
What happened?
Okay, and that's 22 seconds into this. It starts about 7 seconds, and the last one is, it sounds like to me, the fatal shot, which is probably what we're talking about, 15.8 seconds. I think they've timed it there from the first shot till the Secret Service basically taking this guy out, which you're right. I mean, they've got to figure out where it is. Now, it looks like what I've heard, the Secret Service that we see in all that video, those two guys up there that kind of react, I don't think they're the ones. Matter of fact, I think it's been confirmed that there's ones on the other side of Trump that actually took the shot that took this guy out. Is that what you've understood as well?
Yeah, I've seen that reported. I didn't know that it was like a confirmed thing. I think the other shooter, if I want to say that it was considerably further for the other Secret Service team. So I mean, assuming that ups it to 300 or 400 yards or so. I mean, that's not a long shot for what the Secret Service is doing. But that does, if it's 16 seconds from, okay, you need to stop what you're doing and start filling in for basically someone else. Also, Trump has been hit, situations in chaos. 16 seconds is more than fair for that, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. So what have you taken into account or listened to, watched any of these guys that have broken down the audio of the, and I remember, back to, once again, the JFK, once that Zapruder film was released, people started to break down the audio for some good clarification of shots. Have you watched any of those videos, or do you have any comments about that?
No, I haven't.
Okay.
Sorry.
No, it's perfectly fine. Maybe I'll play a little bit here, because what's interesting about it is the fact that you have, they're able to play video or have the video and the audio from like this recording here. So it's 1, 2, 3, then there's a gap, and then there's about 5, 6 different multiple shots coming at it. And then there's a long gap, and then there's the last shot, which is the sniper. Now, what's also interesting about that is the echo. So they're able to determine, and this one guy matched it up audio-wise from the sound stage, the microphone there where Trump is, and then he matched it up with another video that was closer to where the shooter evidently was. And there's some off points there. So his belief is that there's actually multiple shooters. What do you think about any of the conspiracies that are out there currently? What's the worst? What's the best? And what do you think about some of the analysis that's being done?
Yeah, I mean, you have to remember. And again, I haven't watched any of this, so maybe they're pointing something out slightly different. But in terms of any discrepancies in the audio, you have to remember that the bullet is going to be on those microphones before the rifle is. Like, the 5.56 is a supersonic round, and all things being equal, we can just say that 5.56 usually has a muzzle velocity of around 3,000 feet per second. Just to put a round number on it, it's probably, if it's a 16-inch gun and if he's using like some cheaper ammo, it's probably closer to 2750 or something like that. But either way, it's probably about 3,000 feet per second. which means that the bullets are supersonic, so they make noise. And if you have it's professional audio, right? Because it's a presidential rally. And so if you have several microphones that are there, they're going to hear the actual bullet moving by as it breaks the sound barrier a fraction of a second before they hear, the rifle. So, there's going to be some, like, I'm sure that if you have a recording from where the shooter is and a recording from where Trump is, there's going to be a slight discrepancy in the timing, again, because it's, the bullet is moving much faster than the speed of sound. And so, the report from the barrel is going to be lagging behind the report from the bullet, because the bullet is just objectively moving faster. And so, like, that's, I don't know that I would put much stock into it, because in this case, the multiple shooter thing, like, every shooter you add reduces the probability that's true, because it's such an easy shot to make. Like, you know what I mean? Like, if you said, well, there's 2 shooters, 3 shooters, 4, it's like, well, somebody's got to hit this guy. Like, it seems unlikely that 2 shooters would have both missed a target from 120 yards.
Yeah, so I want to pull this because you make such a great point, and this is exactly what. So this is a guy that did some, just math. He's an engineer, like I used to be, and he just did some math up here where the shooter he thinks is, and some averages, and he comes up with this other spot over here where he's like, hey, there's an open window. So he's like, that's what it is. It's this other guy shooting from this other spot over here, and I don't know if that's truly the case or not. I personally, I think at some point they have to release all the data, the angles, because that bullet is coming. And you said exactly what this guy he's saying there's multiple shooters, which his point is Crook is shooting there and then some other sniper out this window. Well, I understand he hit him, he moved, hit him in the ear. And now you've got everybody missing. Then there's the water tower. Everybody's missing. I mean, yes, you hit some random people. So what is do you have any thoughts on this specific one? And then what are your favorite conspiracies that are out there? And then maybe what do you think actually is the truth?
Yeah, I would, anything could happen, but I have not seen anything to suggest there was more than one shooter firing off 3 rounds and then stopping to see if you had any effect on target, and then shooting off a few more out of some type of desperation or something once you realize that maybe you didn't score a hit. I would guess that's what happened. I don't, it doesn't track for me that there would be 2 shooters because they both missed, and so like it would have to be like you found the 2 worst shooters in the county to do this, so like everything becomes less likely if you count 2. Now you've got 2 people that have completely avoided scrutiny from law enforcement, and you've got 2 people that have completely missed very easy shots. I think what happened is this kid sucks at shooting. He was probably up there. It's hot as fuck. He's shitting his pants. He fires off 3 rounds, breaks from his sight picture to see what's going on and realizes that, maybe he didn't actually hit Trump in a meaningful way. And so fires off 5 rounds. Maybe it's, maybe he started to move about. Maybe he tried to leave, something like that. That delay between his second burst and that last shot that rings out, it's possible that he moved in that 10 seconds, right? Maybe he got up to try and get off the roof or something. That's about as far as I'm willing to take it reasonably on a conspiracy theory about like a second shooter or something. Just because I don't, it seems very unlikely, I guess. But in terms of, conspiracy theories overall, the U.S. has had a number of political assassinations. It's not like this isn't something that we do. in this country, and especially it's not like it's not something we don't do to other world leaders, right?
Yeah.
So, the idea that that it was deliberate, I don't know about that. I think this is one of those things where perhaps there are people in the government apparatus who do not like Donald Trump and would not be very upset if he were to fall victim to an assassination attempt. And the people who feel that way have direct control over the agency that is responsible for protecting him. And so they are able to understaff it. They're able to hire more and more less qualified candidates, and able to maybe turn a blind eye to things here and there, or maybe have some, maybe just not go out of their way to weed out inefficiencies and opportunities for mistakes and things like that. So I think that's probably what was really at play here. I mean, if to be like serious about it, I think we have to consider that the current apparatus is the wheels have really come off. I mean, we've seen this the past few years, especially under the Biden administration, but in administrations previously. The government is not exactly operating in our best interests, to say the least. And so it would not surprise me if they deliberately made the Secret Service and the Homeland Security personnel less effective, more bogged down with bureaucracy and overcautious procedures, things like this. Just knowing that, like, okay, like someone's going to do something at some point, right? Like, for the past basically 10 years, every day the media has gone out there and said that Donald Trump is Hitler. Everyone who supports Donald Trump is Hitler. He's the biggest threat that we've ever faced. You're all going to die if Donald Trump becomes president. We wish there was a way to stop him. If only somebody could do something about this guy. And by the way, the Secret Service detail is going to be a little understaffed, and we're going to be disproportionately running some, chubby women who don't normally run protective details. And we'll just kind of see what happens. This is kind of that's my suspicion on what went on here.
So, by the way, I tend to believe that that's the case at this point. We're seeing so much of this just incompetence everywhere. Boeing airplanes is kind of the obvious one here. And I imagine it goes above and beyond. That's why I was talking about the Secret Service and the police are both just mentioning all these failures that they did. And to me, it's if this was a conspiracy that those two were involved, at least the mass, they wouldn't even be mentioning the fact that they had seen this guy, that they had taken a picture of this guy. So I think that's kind of proof in that way. This is one that just came out that I saw today. This is Tony Saruga. I don't know who that is, but he says, we have tracked the black SUV that had picked up our Phantom water tower sniper that escaped using a zip line via the backside of the water tower into the trees, and then on foot a short jaunt to Meridian Road with 100% confidence based on cell phone data. That particular sniper was FBI, and the SUV was registered to the Department of Agriculture. Lee, how do you defend yourself now?
Yeah, so this is kind of funny because in a way, this is these types of things all have the same underlying theme, which is people desperately hoping that their enemies are much more competent than they appear to be. Right? It's not enough that DHS and the Secret Service are operated by retards who hate you. It has to be no, really, there's a secret, really smart guy somewhere that has a zip line and a black SUV, and whatever. Like there's actually, I'm not getting fucked over by a bunch of retards. I'm getting fucked over by really smart guys smoking in a dark room somewhere.
Right.
And it's like, I read that as like a coping mechanism, because it is hard to accept the reality that we're just getting fucked over by a bunch of retards.
It's like your wife leaving you for, I don't know if you saw this, there's a documentary, this guy, he's not a communicating person. Okay. He doesn't communicate. And this lady, she's this doctor about how it's like, what's the lady that we know, the blind, deaf and dumb that everyone knows about, but for some reason I can't remember her name.
Helen Keller.
Yeah, Helen Keller. It's similar to that. This guy is like that. And she leaves her husband for this guy, has sex with him, and he's, in a diaper, and she thinks he's communicating, but he's not. Her husband is like, I can't believe you just left me for this complete, mentally incapacitated person. That's really what we're talking about here. We can't understand how such incompetent people are getting over. So we have to, it's like Donald Trump with 4D chess. It's not the case, right? Is that kind of where you're at? I don't know.
Yeah, that's how I read a lot of this stuff, because again, you can't prove a negative, right? Like negligence is so insidious and dangerous because there's so much deniability involved. Like the Secret Service, like do you really think that Mayorkas at Homeland, or that the director of the Secret Service was like in charge of security at Pepsi. She doesn't have a background in anything meaningful. Right. She's refusing to step down over this. Like this is, which is crazy. Insane, because it's if she had the right worldview on anything involving like a martial code of ethics, she would have resigned without even being asked. It's simple. Yes. You're the director of the Secret Service. A former president gets shot. You go hand your resignation in later that day and retire. You call it the end. This is what people who have lived by like a code of honor or ethics have done since recorded history. And it shows you there is 100% refusal to accept any type of accountability, but it's all done through negligence, cut corners, explained away by, fake excuses about, whatever, climate change or DEI or, fucking the whole nine, everything I'm about to say. And it's like, you can't prove any of that stuff though, because it's all in negative. It's not like one really competent bad guy. It's just a really big absence of competence, which is what makes it so dangerous, because it's like a vacuum, it's like space where, your helmet gets chipped open and your fucking, head gets sucked out, because it's just a vacuum of nothingness, right? Like there's no one to blame for it. There's probably one person that you can blame in DHS and Secret Service, or even local law enforcement, where you're going to be able to pin this on one person. And so that's not a satisfying answer. That's not as it doesn't like appease you in the same way that saying it was Lee Harvey Oswald does, or something like this. Because it's inherently frustrating. It's like, no, I want to blame this on somebody. And it's like, well, there's not one person to blame. Like this can be blamed on, the 1,000 little routes of cowardice that you take every day to avoid confronting people. But this cannot be blamed on like one guy who just, secretly laughed to himself while he knew that Trump was about to be assassinated or something. Like there's not like a Bond villain behind this. What's behind this is a bunch of negligent assholes who have managed to work their way into positions of power. And so these are the types of occurrences that take place when that is allowed to set in.
Because the reality is this kid is caught, easily caught, and he's removed, and they're like, oh, there's bomb making materials. And then the question is really much different. It's like, oh yeah, Trump wasn't really in trouble. It wouldn't have happened, whatever. And the right's going to make a big deal about it. The left's going to downplay it. But the reality is this incompetence allowed him to keep going through. I think that's what you're saying. However, Andy asked a question here. Does Lee think someone put the kid up to it? Was the operational failure intentional or just pure incompetence?
Yeah, I don't know. It would not surprise me at all to learn that, this kid had been communicating with, 7 different federal agents in, Telegram servers, Discord chats, and things like that. Like, I would not be surprised at all to learn that, like, both, the FBI, Homeland Security, local law enforcement, several, the fucking NSA, whatever. Like, it wouldn't surprise me to learn that several organizations had been telling this kid that, you should go make some history, man, or something like that, because that, it's not unlikely because we've seen it several times.
Over. Whitmer recently.
Right. So it would not be surprising to me at all if someone was in this kid's ear. Like, and I think all that'll come out. I don't know, maybe if it was directed at Trump. I mean, that's obviously what who he tried to kill. So, sure. Like that wouldn't surprise me at all if someone put him up to it. Because otherwise, there's not a great reason, to be honest, if you're a 20-year-old white kid from Pennsylvania or whatever, like, not a huge reason to dislike Donald Trump. I mean, this kid, apparently his parents were like psychiatrists or psychologists or something like that. So God only knows what, he's been fed his whole life. So it's tough to say, but it would not surprise me if someone had put him up to it.
Yeah, I totally agree on that. Let me ask you 2 quick questions here. Well, you can take them as you need. The DEI angle, or, dumbing down, or where you're not getting your job in the Secret Service for how skilled you are, but instead your gender or your race. I think you've talked about that with the military. How pervasive or how bad do you think that played a part in this situation?
Well,
I mean, it's easy to see the clown show that we saw afterwards.
Yeah.
And is that really, justified or not?
Yeah, I think, I'll just put it this way. Like, there's no reason to have, female agents at, in the
That's
capacity.
good right there. Just end it right there.
Right, yeah. All right. Thanks for coming out, everybody. Yeah.
Female agents.
In the capacity of, like any type of tactical, like, first line response, right? Like, if you take a female who is a competent shooter, physically fit, quick-witted, and then you take a male who is a competent shooter, physically fit, quick-witted, 10 out of 10 times the male's going to outperform the female. And that's just the reality. That's not me trying to, like, hate on women or something like that. Like, there are women who have, courage. There are women who can make contributions and things, and like, that's fine. But when you're talking about a Secret Service agent who is protecting the president, there's just not any real justification for it. And I mean, you see this. I mean, we saw this play out, right? I mean, Donald Trump. The left is very unhappy that he was able to stand up and, like, fist pump and everything.
Right.
And it's like, well, yeah, he's 6'3". They like these girls are like 5'4". Like, of course he's able to stand up. Like, they can't actually shield him from anything. Like,
evidently though, knocking him down. That's how he lost his shoes from getting tackled.
Yeah. He got hit by a couple guys, and, like, I mean, you saw. I'm sure you saw the footage of the lady who couldn't reholster her pistol.
Yeah.
And it's not that hard to holster your gun. I saw some cope about that. People's like, well, if it's stressful, and so she's wearing a jacket, and so it's like, yeah, I get it, but it's not stressful if you've trained with a handgun. Like, that's the thing.
I just want to say that because once again, I don't know why Tim Kennedy. I just had seen him thing today. His assessment of the snipers kind of reacting on the roof was they hadn't seen gun battle before. So that
possible.
Yeah. So he's like, that to me blows me away. He's like, these should be all people that are, in a sense, battle hardened, and her not holstering her weapon. I mean, we see Phil Labonte. He's holstering his weapon on Twitter all the time. So it should be able to be not that difficult. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, it's. I mean, it's really not like. There's like the country is full of guys who just carry a concealed handgun, who do holster draws every morning before they leave for the day, right? Like, and if you carry a gun, you should be doing this. Like, it should not be difficult for you to reholster a sidearm. Like, and even when you're under stress, like it just shouldn't. And it definitely should not be hard for you if you're a Secret Service agent or a Homeland Security agent or a law enforcement officer, you know, whatever. And so at the tactical level, this stuff, of course, it plays a part, right? Like, I don't think that Donald Trump got shot because a woman was fat or something like that.
Right.
But it speaks to the larger attitudes about the job itself, which is that this could just be done by anybody. There's no wrong way to do this as long as you're fierce and you meet the HR requirements. Then you're fine. You know, and obviously these are the types of outcomes that you get. Like, once you start to erode the discipline from like the managerial standpoint of like, hey, we're only going to take the best possible people for this. Like, we're going to say no to a lot of people. Once you start to erode that willingness, then you're opening the door just by default to bad outcomes like this. Like that, like you can't be like a top tier unit and have people who are not physically fit, people who are not proficient with their firearms, and male or female, anybody. But you just can't do it. Like, and it erodes esprit de corps, it erodes unit cohesion, and it brings office politics into life or death tactical decision making. And so you get big failures like this where no one can make rational decisions. No one feels like they should be taking action because everything is going to be against the friction of like an HR department. And I think that is as much to blame here as any conspiracy is, because this is, I think the evidence bears that out, right? Like, in a unit, like if your unit is operating well, if people trust each other, you don't feel discouraged from taking action that you think is correct, right? Like, you don't bite your instincts if you're around people that you trust, right? And this does not happen in units where people are working well together, where people feel like they're able to take risks and say, hey, look, no, we need to take some action on this. I want you to go do that. And if there's a 20-minute delay from the time that they see a guy on a rooftop with a rangefinder and the time that guy starts shooting at a president of the United States, it's because there's some type of real fundamental problem with how these people work as a team. And that is what DEI does. I mean, and you see this with everything. This is the same thing that happened with Boeing, like you mentioned earlier. The same thing that happened today. I mean, we're recording this on the 19th, and there's a massive global internet crash today because the CrowdStrike or whatever had recommitted themselves to DEI, and it's like, look, I don't need you to commit yourself to DEI. I need the fucking internet to work, and I don't need to let a bunch of fat retards into the Secret Service, so that they can be a 20-minute window where some guy wants to shoot Donald Trump. Like, that's absurd.
Yeah, the CrowdStrike, by the way, I don't know if it was a line of code. I saw some guy breaking that down, some C++ that was just wrong. Anyway, we don't need to. Maybe you do want to get into that. Let me ask, violence on the left and the right. It was my immediate tweeting on this was kind of trolling in a sense, but the right has a way of always saying things like, the Bernie Sanders shooter, we don't blame Bernie Sanders for that, but then it comes back to bite them. They don't push back to just basically, and I think they should, which is, you know what, you're going to own it at this point. This guy shot him, and I may not believe it, but I'm going to blame the left for this until we have maybe some mutually assured cancel culture. What is your take on that aspect of kind of like doing a scorched earth type of mentality on that?
Yeah, I think, someone made the point that this kid's 20, the kid the shooter, And so since this kid is like 12, every day he's turned on the TV or, open social media or something like that, he's seen either one of two things. One is that Donald Trump is evil and he has to be stopped, or that he himself is evil and, he needs to, atone for the sins of being like a white guy in the Midwest or something. And, so that's 8 years. Like if every day since you were 12, you woke up and the media just told you that, like, you are bad and you need to make up for being bad, and that there's a really bad guy who's, taking office and he should be stopped, and there's just, nothing you could do would be wrong, right? Then yeah, you do have to kind of own that, right? Like, I mean, you remember during the first Trump term, Kathy Griffin held up the fake Trump head, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
And the media was like, no, this is good. You can be outraged with it. You guys are a bunch of snowflakes. Someone should cut off Trump's head. Like, that was like almost universally the media sentiment on that. And you can't for 8 years say that this guy is the biggest threat the world's ever seen and then act surprised when at least one guy believes that, right? Like, the media, as retarded as they are, there are people who watch the news and believe it, and that is a unfortunate reality that we live in that world, but they do bear some responsibility. It's that simple. I think the right should definitely force some type of concession, some type of change there. It should not be like this whole, like, wink nod, it's free speech, where the media, blah, 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 is, at this point, it's clearly a facade. It's probably always been a facade. But everyone knows what's going on here, which is that they don't like people who like Donald Trump. They don't like Donald Trump himself, and they don't see anything that they could do that would be unethical in the pursuit of demoralizing people who like Donald Trump, humiliating people who like Donald Trump, or demoralizing and humiliating Donald Trump himself. And so when you spend $1 billion a year and thousands of hours every year of broadcast television saying that, it is on you when someone actually believes that. It takes you up on it.
Yeah, I had relatives, in-law relatives, when it happened on Saturday when I was at their house. They're kind of high-fiving about it. Well, they were literally high-fiving about it.
Right.
And I'm like, okay, that's disturbing, because I wouldn't necessarily think that. But I will say this about them. You think Trump is Hitler, at least you aren't wishing him well, right? So you're at least being ideology or mentally, logically consistent, unlike these others that are saying, oh, I wish him well. It's like, well, you call him Hitler all the time, and now you wish him well. Why would you even want to go down that route? That doesn't make sense. What about Trump's, and then we'll let you end here, but Trump's tough guy. So if this happened in the Secret Service and you got shot, blood's dripping down your neck, Secret Service is piling on top of you, and there's multiple gunshots around you, and your reaction is to come up with a fist, do you see why some people, Top Lobster out there as an example, thinks that Trump arranged this somehow? That yes, there was real shooting, the crowd got shot because they'll send people to war, they don't care about killing people, therefore he's going to fake this himself, because look at the blowback really is a positive effect. What's your take on that?
Yeah, I don't I don't believe that. I don't think that and the fact that he was able to get up and fist pump and things like that, I don't think it suggests that it was staged. I think it suggests that Donald Trump has a degree of personal courage.
Yeah.
I mean, what he did, his response was iconic. I mean, these are going to be like, these are photos that are going to be in the history books for the next few hundred years. But the world is full of guys who will, get shot or get shot at or, be injured and, stand back up and be defiant in the face of that danger. Like that is something that, guys like that do exist outside of like the Marvel universe, and so I think that was like shocking to a lot of people, because you have to remember that for a lot of people on the left, the idea of like courage is, or even willingly exposing yourself to danger, a lot of them don't really know that like you could just do that like that's a real thing that people can do. Like a lot of, think about how people were with COVID, where it's like, oh my God, you're still going to go outside and like go for a jog or something. Like, don't you know that, if you encounter someone with COVID, there's like a less than 1% chance that you could die. And it's like, yeah, I know that, and I don't care. It's like, well, you're fucking deranged. Like, you're sick. Like, we need to lock you inside your house. That's a really dangerous way to think about things. And this is just a extreme extension of that, where, yeah, you almost died. You got a little cut on the ear, and you're probably a little pissed off, probably a little fired up. Yeah, you could stand up and fist pump at that. You're probably very happy to be alive. I mean, they had already said the shooter's down, so presumably maybe you're out of danger. So I don't think that's, to me, it doesn't suggest that it was a staged event or something like that. I mean, I think it has helped Trump because he reacted in a masculine way that inspires confidence and energy and enthusiasm. And this is his response is not one that is commonly seen in the media. Like, if you are, someone who, if you're a millennial or a Zoomer or something like that, the last 30 years in the media has been TV sitcom dads, right? It's been fat dummies who just get henpecked by their wives and picked on by their boss. That has evolved into people needing whatever self-care days and mental health awareness and things like this. And so at an institutional standpoint, the idea of someone just being rugged and being on TV doesn't really track. And so, people see that and are like, holy shit, is he allowed to do that? Like, is this guy actually allowed to show courage and bravery and some type of like intestinal fortitude on TV? Like, are they really going to let somebody do this? Because I've been told that this is bad, this is toxic, this is not the way to deal with your emotions. You should trust the experts. Who does this guy think he is? Just standing up on his own 2 feet, fist pumping to the crowd, and then going to UFC later that night. That's not the type of thing that they normally let be shown on television. They don't have characters like that. And so for a lot of people, it either creates this like disgust response where they say, no way, man, that's a ketchup packet. Nobody's that brave. Like, you're crazy, or they, go the other way. They're like, oh, I wish he was dead. They should have killed him, because very few people are capable of saying, no, I think it's, it's actually okay for a guy to have courage, and as rare as it is, it does still exist. And I think a lot of people have responded positively to that because it's a refreshing change of pace.
Absolutely. And so there's a comment here that says, stop deifying him. And I don't think it's even that so much as, it's like, I think it was Obama that was saying something about, it's brave to be like a father or something like that. It's like, no, you're just stop denigrating normal activity. Stop, and that's what's happened so much, that you're not deifying him. We're just saying, I think you are, and I totally agree, which is just let a man be a man. And, what's interesting, I think, about this whole, him doing this fist, which is all the lawfare that's happened to him. And by the way, I'm not Trump hater, but I'm not a Trump sycophant either. But all this lawfare that's happened to him, it's probably weighing him down a lot. He's in the middle of this campaign. He gets shot. It's too impeccable timing for it to happen to be fake. And all of this rage comes out in a sense, which is, I'm now going to be defiant. He is like, the fist pump up there, it's all this built up. And I think it was just too much for him to handle. And he acted like a man. Once again, I don't think you'd see Gore acting this way. I don't think you'd see Biden would have died from those guys tackling him. So that wouldn't have happened either way. So I'm on the board with you. Now, I will say, as far as all these conspiracies going, I'm totally open. And the more we get all the shell casings, get me all the angles. Let's have a breakdown. Let's have it as open as possible. Let's try to find out so that we don't have a JFK problem later on, where every conspiracy in the book is out there because we don't know with the truth, because it's all been hidden. Just simple stuff has been hidden. So I hope that's where we come. Lee, any last comments you want to make before we head out?
No, I mean, I think, I'm open to the conspiracy theories as well. But particularly, kind of final thought about the idea that it was like staged or some type of, something like that. A conspiracy requires conspirators, and it's not like Trump. Like, what's he going to do? Like, the media doesn't like him, right? The bureaucratic apparatus of the government doesn't like him. So it's not like he's got a long friends list of guys who are going to stick their neck out and help him stage some event so that he can gain 3 points in national polling. Like, he can't just call up, the media and the Secret Service director and say, hey, I need you to do me a favor. Let some guy shoot me in the ear, and then let me stand up and take a really sick photo. Like, it's just...
By the way, he's moving too much to actually try to hit him in the ear and hit him in the ear. I mean,
right. It doesn't track. Like, I'm not saying that, someone wouldn't necessarily do something like that. Like, the idea of staging an event to make yourself look favorable. Sure. Like, I get, people are capable of doing that type of thing, and it's been done before, but I don't think in this case that really holds up. I think that what will come out from this is malice and ineptitude, and I think this is another case where these people are just so retarded and so out of touch with reality and so bad at their jobs that basically what they've been able to do is fuck up at fucking up, and I think that's kind of what this can be chalked up to.
I agree. And by the way, if you're going to stage this, you're not going to do it outside where the variables are just insurmountable. I don't think that's what's going to happen. So I don't think it's on him, but I'm open to it possibly in some other things. Okay, everybody go check out Lee. He's got his newsletter. You should subscribe to that. He's also got a podcast that he's on, so check that out as well. There he is on Twitter. Find him, and he's a great follow. I do love all his stuff, all your stuff, Lee. Appreciate you once again for coming on. Other than that, I think we're out on a Friday night. Everybody, make sure you subscribe to the show, like it as well. We've gone back and done some legal stuff. We just did a thing about Dave Smith and Andrew Wilson, knocking them down on their family law stuff. So once again, Lee, big thanks to you coming out. And if any more developments happen, I will definitely be looking to have you back. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm leaving now. Bye, guys.
But she's back.
And now.
Chick-fil-A is completely overrated. It's not that good. I prefer Zaxby's. I prefer Popeyes.
Takes a tough man to make a tender forecast, Nick. And I guess that's me. Keep fucking that chicken.
Should I vote for Dick Cheney on the Libertarian Party? Do I have an obligation to vote for Dick Cheney?
I would say so.
Yes.
Did it work for those people?
No, it never does. I mean, these people somehow delude themselves into thinking it might, but it might work for us.
That one dude was like, not a podcast, I can't find it anywhere, and they don't have video.
Oh, yeah, Peter Janke, yeah.
Yeah, I blocked him.
I'll do it. If he unblocks me, I'll...
He'll buy your shirt if you unblock him, Bert.
He's a wigger.
Yeah, nothing cooler than a 49-year-old wigger.
Like,
I just started live streaming. Cut me some slack. I'm pretty high tech for a boomer. But anyways,
boomer.